Welcome to another episode of the Uncoached Podcast. Today I have a friend of mine, Tash Osgood, with me. She is an incredible chiropractor, has even gone as far as the Commonwealth Games as a chiro. She's a very, very good athlete as well. She's competed at British, English, all the ones of note. Yeah, she's nowadays doing some different things that we'll delve into later. But yeah, this is Tash.
Hi everyone.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I feel like there's almost like two stages of what I want to dive into with you because there's like your work and then there's you as an athlete as well.
Yeah.
So let's start with work. Let's start with like the chiropractor side of things because you are literally at work
Okay.
now. You're finished, right? So you're probably in that mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to start with such a basic question. What
Yeah.
is what is a chiropractor's role? Because I know that a lot of people don't necessarily know the difference between like what you do and like what a physio would do. And there's a lot of opinions where it's like, oh, they just go and crack your back. And like I, as someone that cannot have adjustments done, have seen you obviously a lot and can testify that a good chiropractor is not that at all. So I would love to just clear up for anyone listening off the bat, what is your role? Like what would someone expect if they came to see you?
So I guess you've obviously got your generic chiropractors who, yes, one of the main skills that they have is adjustments. So that's obviously where you put a push for a joint, and obviously sometimes you hear click pop. That is when you go to see like your normal chiropractors. You've obviously got very good chiropractors. You've obviously got very, I wouldn't say bad chiropractors. That is not the word.
It's like anything though,
The
isn't it? You're
ones
gonna
that kind of are very much, yeah, absolutely. It's one of those where we are very, like, we are spinal specialists. So that is kind of, if you Googled it or anything, like, we're musculoskeletal and spinal specialists. We look at the body as a whole. We look at how the nervous system affects the whole body as well. Um, the difference, I'd say, with me, and there's quite a few other chiropractors that I know who are kind of going down this route. Um, I've always wanted to go into sport, and obviously being in sport, movement, exercise, rehab is the most important thing in my opinion. So yes, there's treatment that is obviously really important, to try and help if there's someone's in pain, in discomfort, if they've got inflammation that needs calming down, etc. That will be essential to obviously work on. However, I also do a lot of rehab, movement pattern work. I do movement assessments, etc. So I will always like tailor a plan that will suit you rather than just giving people generic rehab. Like some people do, like there's lots of different appointment types that you can come in when you see me, but I always try and urge people to go down the more specific one where you can get a movement assessment. I will look at how the body's moving as a whole, how individual joints are moving. So looking at stability, mobility, motor control, looking at like compound movements, so squats, deadlifting, hinging, but also like, especially if I work with a lot of CrossFitters, weightlifters, powerlifters, runners, for example, like they're the main bulk of people that I see. We'll then look at, let's say, if someone's struggling with anything in their hip when they're doing gymnastic work. So we'll get them on the bar, we'll have a look at what's going on, where the pain is, what's wrong. But then we then come back into the treatment room and we'll do lots of muscle testing. We'll do a full body assessment, see where hurts, where doesn't, where feels tight, where's weak, etc. Like, it is a very thorough assessment that I will give someone, and then their treatment will always include a hands-on treatment as well as rehab plan, etc. The reason I've always wanted to go down that route more so is there's a lot of people that have always said to me, oh, well, I see you, then I see my physio, then I see my sports massage therapist, then I see this person, then I see that person. And I'm like, I don't want to be that type of person where you have to like dip your fingers in all the pies, but I want
Yeah,
to make sure that I'm good enough at what I do so people don't have to go and see other people, if that makes
100%.
sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I also, like, a massive part of my philosophy of how I work is making sure that people feel better, people move better, people can perform better. And the way that you can do that is with exercise and rehab on top of the hands-on stuff. I think it just works really well together. And so that's why I think sometimes, I guess, when people say, oh, you're a chiropractor or you just click people's backs, and I'm like, yeah, that's part of what I do. And it is a massive part of we are trained in it for 4 years. Like it's an intense course
Yeah,
at
for sure.
uni, but and that is the basis of what I do and how I treat.
Mhm.
But on top of that, I also provide rehab plans, movement assessments, etc., to make it like a full bodied like package for someone. So they're getting everything from me rather
Mhm.
than having to just get part of where their recovery plan would be. Or because some people come in and they don't even have an injury, they're just like, I don't feel like I move well. And I'm like, okay. So maybe for them, treatment might not be the most important thing. So we'll go through a movement assessment and do mostly rehab. Some people come in and they've got like an acute rotator cuff injury, let's just say. Okay, you probably need a bit more treatment before we can go into like divulge into a lot of rehab. Like a movement assessment might not even show much because everything's so painful. You won't be able to even have a look and see why or how they're moving. So reducing that inflammation and that pain levels is the most important thing first. Then we can
Yeah.
go into X, Y, Z. Everyone is just treated so differently. So I like the amount of times people call me a physio. Some people get really weird about what people call them. Like, yes, on paper I am a chiropractor, but if someone wants to call me a physio, someone can call me a physio. Like, it doesn't bother me because I know that I provide a similar service to what a physio could as well. I just have other skills, but that they might not have, and some physios also might have skills that I don't have. Like, it's all very different, but as long as I can get someone better
Yeah.
and get them to a point where they want to be before they came in, then that's all that matters to me.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. They're coming to you for the service, not like a set job title or
Yeah,
something like that. But
exactly.
I mean, you're very, very established at what you do. So I don't think anyone's going to be concerned coming to you. I just know that in general, that's the thing that, like, if you say, oh, someone, even me, to be fair, if someone like my dad will say, oh, I'm going to the chiropractor because they've said that I need to keep having my back, and I'm a bit like, oh, but he's never set foot in like a gym in the last 10 years. And I'm like, oh, just anyway.
Move. And I think that's also like the one thing that I think, using you as an example, yes, chiropractors, the main thing that they obviously we do like as a hands-on treatment is adjustment and like spinal manipulation and stuff like that. But there's also people that I do not even adjust at all.
I'm the
You as an
ultimate test.
example. Yeah, you as an example, like um we don't adjust people, and anyone who is hypermobile or has autoimmune conditions or like for example like EDS, etc., it is dangerous to adjust that person. So you just use different skills to be
Mhm.
able to work with what you've got. And I've not even had to adjust you, and things have already like things improved. Like, you
Yeah,
don't need, just because I'm a chiropractor does not mean that an adjustment is the one and only thing that I do. And also for some people that isn't actually what they need.
no,
Um and that's why every time you come in, that's why these thorough assessments and these thorough initial consultations are so important, because you need to figure out whether, let's say, a certain style of treatment or a certain mode of treatment is the best for them or not. Or is it actually being like, right, they need to have more rehab, etc., for this thing? Or like there's so many people that come in and they're like, I feel really like stiff and tight all the time. I'll do a movement assessment and their mobility is really good,
yeah,
but their stability is not. And so they were like, oh, I just stretch all the time and it just doesn't get any better. And I'm like, because stretching is probably not the thing
yeah,
because if a muscle doesn't feel stable, it's going to tighten up and it's going to be like, we don't feel safe going in that position. So that is then why people then go, oh, well, I feel like I need to stretch because I'm tight. It's not actually the case. And I think that's why I love my job, because you're like a detective. You're a
yeah,
detective every day, because everyone coming in, even if they've got a similar presentation to another person, there's always going to be something that's slightly different about them, as to why you would then adapt the different types of rehab plans or the type of treatment that you would do for them as well. And then some people come in with like weird and wonderful cases, and I'm like, this hurts my brain. But they're almost sometimes my favorite cases, because it really makes you think on the spot, and it really makes you use your initiative in terms of rehab plans as well. And then being like, right, okay, so let's trial this sort of stuff. If that's not working, let's then do this, let's then do that. Like, that's it is like being a detective, and I think that's why I love it. And then when you see the results as well, it's the best. Like just seeing it, it's little things like people who I know obviously going into sport and working with sport is just seeing people, okay, I can do this now pain free with no issues, and I've not been able to do that ever in my life, and now I can do it. It's just the normal things where someone goes like, I managed to sleep with no pain, or I was actually able to put my shoes on with no pain. It's those little things that I love to hear, and that makes me happy knowing that it's had an impact on their life, not just their training. It's a very fulfilling job. Like it just makes me happy.
Like when I first came to you, I mean, firstly, I came to you, I think with a shoulder thing, and I can't remember if that was the
Yeah.
fact, but I was fully expecting it to kind of like, we're just going to look at my shoulder. And I remember a few minutes in being you're kind of like, oh, Raj, you're standing like, you're taller on this side than, wait, what? What do you mean? And like I
What's
was so like tight in one of my hips, I think, that I was literally like stood off balance and I didn't feel it. And I was just like, I have such bigger problems. And I realized I thought my shoulder was like, what the hell?
was that the first session where I did your jaw as well?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was
And I
like,
can
oh
remember you
my gosh.
messaged Benedict and you were literally like, what the hell just happened? But
Yeah.
like massive changes. So like, and that's
Yeah.
another thing about my job. Like you always have to look at where the pain is. But I would honestly say about 75 to 8% of the time, it's never normally that's actually like the root cause
No.
of what's the problem. You've got to look at the body as a whole, because if you don't, you're going to miss something.
Yeah. I think also with that, like I came in because of training. Like I wanted to fix it because of Olympic weightlifting. So all the time that it had just been in pain and stuff like this, I was like, it's what it is. But
Yeah.
I want my jug to get better, or like I wanted to be able to clean with less pain. So I was like, right, I'll go and see somebody about it. And actually, like my shoulder subluxes less when I go to sleep. Like it still does it sometimes, but like I have to sleep with certain things under my joints because my shoulder comes out of its socket because I have weird stuff wrong with me. And like it still happens if I do it wrong, but like for the most part, that's not a night by night thing. And it's rehabbing stuff that because I was just kind of like greedy about my sport, I guess, and didn't value myself as a whole
Yeah.
enough to do it. Like it has changed the quality of my life by extension. So yeah, it is. It must be super rewarding to kind of
So
like, even if
good.
people don't know that's why they're coming to you, to be able to be like, this is going to change so much for you, and then them realize that too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing that I love is exactly that. Like they've come in for one reason, but then they've realized they've got more out of it than they realized. And I think
Mm,
sometimes it's like a really nice, not nice, some people would not call it nice, like an eye-opening experience when you go, like, okay, my body doesn't move actually how I kind of want it to or how it should.
yeah.
And like there's some people that come in and I go through like their rehab plan and they are literally like, this is horrendous. Like this is so hard. And I'm just like, but these are now the things that if we work on these, think about how much better
Mm,
whatever you wanted to come in for will be. Um, and like, and there's some people who are like, there's an imbalance that you don't sometimes need to change that. Like you wouldn't
mm,
need to change it. Like, let's use, I don't know, like I had a patient come in and it's kind of like Usain Bolt, really. He is the fastest man like in the world, right?
yeah.
And he's got scoliosis. He always leans into the bend for his 200 when he did 200 meters. And so there was a lot of imbalance through like his hips and spine. Yes, there is an imbalance there, but why would you change it? Like, why would you change that? Like, I could go divulge into a massive hole there, but like, does that, and that's what makes him the fastest man
Yeah.
in the world. You've then got, I had someone in, thankfully, which is amazing, like discharged her now because we've got no issues anymore and everything's to the point where we wanted to get her. But she used to be a sprinter and she was having an issue with her cleans. No pain, but she just was just hit like a barrier, and she used to have her right leg used to just have a mind of its own, basically. It didn't really do any, like, it almost like it wouldn't do anything, and it would kind of lift off the floor earlier. We could kind of put it like a skanky leg, basically, and it was just, it didn't do anything. And so when I took her history, she was just like, she used to do sprinting, she'd do 400 and 200. And I was like, okay, so when you're always running anti-clockwise, so you're always going to lean into the left.
Yeah.
When you lean into the left, you're always, when you're on that bend, you're putting so much more pressure through your left foot. So
Yeah.
when you looked at her posture, like, she had just a lot more muscle buildup all the way through her left-hand side of her lower back and her spine. No pain, no issues, but that's just how she's built. But because of that, she's now then gone to a sport where you've got to rely on both of your feet on the floor at the same time and using them at the same time.
Yeah.
And now she's got to a point where she's at a weight where she's plateauing because she's not actually able to generate much power through the right foot, because
So
she's so used to just putting
interesting.
so much more through the left. So
Yeah.
all of her rehab was basically trying to get her to get improved proprioception and power from the foot up in her cleans, because her snatches weren't too bad because the weight
Yeah.
isn't as heavy. But when she got to the point of like a 80% or above clean, it would always happen. And we've basically now managed to get her to a point where that it just doesn't happen anymore. And that was all her rehab. Like, we did a bit of treatment, but all of her rehab was based on working on that right leg to generate
Yeah.
improved proprioception, power output, and actually feel that leg work when
That's
she's
literally
doing those
so
explosive movements.
interesting. But I can almost like picture her going to, say, like a doctor or a physio that's not a sports specialist, and then kind of looking at it and being like, there's nothing wrong with you though. And like that's the answer. Like
Yeah.
I can so see that that would be just like you just need to try harder. Like that sort of thing, rather than delving into it and actually you've delved and you found something. Like
Yeah. Because you've got, and it's one of those things as well where, like, there's so many brilliant, like, manual therapists or musculoskeletal specialists, physios, osteos, etc. Like, there are so many.
hmm,
I'm not for everyone. Like, that's fine. Like, I know that I'm not for everyone, but I know how I like to treat and how what I think works.
yeah.
It doesn't work for everyone. There's going to be other people that are probably better for you. But 9 times out of 10, if it helps and it works, like, great,
Yeah.
like, brilliant. And I think just hitting people's goals is one thing, but exceeding that is another. And if I feel like I can do that and help people, and improve their quality of life, improve their fitness goals, etc., then I feel like I've done everything that I've wanted to do, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, with my career and whatnot. So yeah.
Something I've found is when I've gone to, like, I know some great physios and things as well, but when I've specifically gone to non-sport specific ones, sometimes some of the rehab and things they'll give me are, they're probably really suitable for someone that doesn't train. But
Yeah.
like for me, it will be things like with the shoulder thing, it will be like, oh, do some strict press. I'm already doing this. Like, do you think I
Yeah.
don't like, do you think I haven't tried these things? Like, oh,
Yeah.
my ankle rehab. Oh, have you tried calf rest? Of course I have. Of course I've tried a calf rest. Like, it's like I need you to like program me things for someone who is already strong but
Yeah.
has a specific injury, because it's not going to be as simple as like, oh, just try a strict press. Like I've done this so much.
I think it's one of those things where, like, exactly as you said, that sort of rehab will be so good for someone, let's say, who's either in an acute injury, who doesn't really train as much,
Mhm.
who is kind of like, we call it like gen pop, like, not just training sport at a high level or anything like that. Like, that would be so beneficial for them. It's then when you take it to the next step and being like, right, okay, so they're already strong. The reason they've had this injury is probably from something else going on. It's not necessarily like there's some high end, like, let's say, I don't know, let's use a footballer for example. the amount of strength and conditioning that they do, they are strong. So when an injury happens, it's not necessarily, oh, like if they like torn the hamstring or something like that, they haven't got weak hamstrings. It doesn't mean that they've got weak hamstrings. Something mechanically is just not working correctly, and it's a very common thing for to be like, oh, you torn that, or you've pulled your back or something because your hamstrings are weak or your glutes are weak, and it's just like that's just not always the case. It's not always the case. You've got to look at the bigger picture and look at what is actually going on in that person. For some people who don't train, probably their hamstring probably weak and don't do anything, and that's probably why it's pulled or torn or whatever. In a footballer, that is less likely the case, and there's probably a biomechanical thing where things just might not be communicating as well, or there's been a situation when like they're in a game and they've just not been exposed to it and they were like, oh, like that probably wasn't wise, or it's literally like land. It could literally be like the terrain, like the pitch, like their boot might get stuck in the floor and they've turned and then something's happened. Like you can't control those sorts of things. So it is, as you said, it's just looking at a bigger picture and making sure that how you treat that individual is specific and tailored to that person. Because how I would treat a 60-year-old person who doesn't train to a 35-year-old individual who does train is very, very different. Like, and vice versa. Like I could have like a 30-year-old individual who doesn't train at all, doesn't exercise or anything, but I've got like a 55-year-old person who trains all the time. Yes, this person's older, but they're probably actually stronger than the other. Like it's completely up to every time someone comes into the door, it's a blank slate. Like, doesn't matter how old you are, I need to know everything about you so that you get the correct service from me and you get the correct rehab plan to make sure that it is tailored and suited to you. So
it makes perfect sense. Do you have any issues with people not being able to tell the difference between pain and discomfort? Because this is something I struggle with quite often as a coach. People that there's pain, and I'm like, is it pain? Is it like sometimes it will be that they do need to do a bit more mobility and they'll be in a stretcher, but it's painful, and I'm like, yeah, but is it painful like it's supposed to be painful? Is it painful like it's actually painful? Or even they'll do a max of something or like a max reps of something and like, oh, towards the end it really hurt. And it's like, but did it hurt like it hurt, or did it hurt like whatever thing wasn't quite strong enough to get you through that final rep was struggling and you're saying that hurt? Like, do you have ways that you help people differentiate between when they're telling you something hurts?
This is a really hard one because aside from differentiating between pain and discomfort, it's also every single person's pain tolerance is completely different. So I firstly use a rule, is my 4 out of 10 rule. So 1, 2, 3 out of 10, you need to be a bit like, okay, I know that it's a bit painful, I know it's a bit sore, whatever, but it's okay. Your 4 out of 10 is always your question mark. You'd be like, right, I think this is a 4 out of 10. Is it like a 3, 4 out of 10 where I could keep going, but I just adapt it? Or is it like a 4, 5 where you probably should just stop? Because there's always that level of people coming in and being like, oh, I've just trained through it so much. And it's got to the point where it's so chronic, they literally cannot do anything. And it's like, you do not want to get it to the point where you can't do anything. So if you're thinking it's pushing on from a 4 to a 5, that's where I'm like, you should just stop what you're doing, completely adapt it to make sure that it is not painful. Trying to explain to someone the difference between pain and discomfort is so difficult. Discomfort is very much like, do you feel uncomfortable? Do you feel like you can still do it? It's just hard. That's probably is more, I would say, for someone discomfort. Pain is where you genuinely feel like you can't do it because that's holding you back. Like that discomfort, like that pain or that feeling that you've got is holding you back from doing something, whether it feels like it's unstable, whether it feels like it's so painful you can't actually do it. Let's say you get lower back pain when you're at the bottom of a squat. Like, the reason why you couldn't do it is because it was so painful. And but everyone's interpretation of pain and discomfort is, again, is so different. So it's so difficult to, like, it's, for example, like if someone says to me, oh, I had really bad lower back pain when I was squatting, but then I went and did a WOD. And I'm like, well then, like, and how was it during the WOD? Oh, fine. And I'm like, okay. And the WOD involved, like, I don't know, let's say there was like wall balls and some cleans, or like something like that, where it's you're involving like that hingy pattern
Yeah.
movements. And it's just kind of like, okay, was it just an awareness, or was it painful enough for you to have to stop and not do the WOD, sort of thing? Like, there's so many factors that you have to consider with
I
it.
think
And that,
lower back in particular is a super weird one as well, because I know that if I've done something that was particularly taxing on my lower back, the next day when it aches, it feels really similar to lower back pain. Like,
yeah,
I'm not somebody that makes a fuss about like actual pain very often, but I'll be like, is this aching, or like have I
yeah,
done have I gone too far this time? And I'll just sit it out, and it's aching, it's fine. Like, but lower back one in particular is a really weird one where I think some of it as well is there's so much fear mongering on the internet about anything lower back that it's
yeah,
like, oh, if it's remotely uncomfortable, you've probably done something really bad. And actually, no, it kind of does feel that way. It's an odd
yeah.
one.
And lower back is the easy, like, not the easiest, but it's the best one to try and differentiate, because you've got to be like, right, can you do X, Y, and Z? Yes.
Mm,
Okay. So it's probably aching because you overworked it.
yeah,
Like, you did a lot of deadlifts, you did a lot of this, you did a lot of that. You're probably aching, you're probably feeling a bit sore. Fine. In your lower back, if you are struggling to even roll over in bed, if you're struggling to sit to stand because it's sore, if you're struggling, you can't bend over, touch your toes, if you can't face the idea of thinking about having to go into a squat, that's when you know it's pain. So
yeah,
it's those sort of things you need to be like, right, is this actually? But again, it's just so difficult. Like, I had someone in yesterday, and like her pain threshold was pretty high, but she came in and she was like, I definitely have done my back in. And I was like, okay, like, what happened? Explained. And she was like, this is pretty sore, but didn't come across like it was that sore. Treated it, etc. Like, rolling over on the bench was really uncomfortable. You could see how tentative she was. And this is
mm,
coming from someone who has come to me where she was like, I've, like, her back's just a bit achy, like, fine. Like, you can get that differentiation. She's able to differentiate.
yeah,
Whereas, like, there's some people who can come in and it's probably just a bit more of an ache, but they've got such a lower pain threshold that they can't even, like, sit to stand properly without it. It's neither is, it's not like it's a bad thing or whatever. Everyone's pain tolerance is so different, and that's
yeah.
what you've just got to adapt
Mm.
with. And you've ultimately, the goal for me is being, whether it is pain or discomfort, can I make them feel more comfortable with doing X, Y, and Z? Can we adapt their training? Can we adapt their rehab? Can we adapt things to make sure that they can still train, but without them feeling uncomfortable, until I've been able to say, have a look at it, or whatever. And that's then why the rehab plans are so important to me, is because it gives them tools to be able to try and sort these things out without having to feel like they have to come to see me, they have to rely on me to try and fix them. It's like, right, okay, if it's discomfort, do your rehab exercises and tell me how you feel after. Does it feel better? Yep, brilliant. If it's pain, do your rehab exercises. It feels a bit better, but it's still not great and it's still quite sore. Okay, there's probably something going on that we might need to have a look at. Come on in. Like, that's kind of my differentiation, is rehab would normally help a bit of discomfort, heat, moving around, keep yourself mobile, drinking water, blah blah blah. Like, those things normally just allow that, like, discomfort to go, as well as obviously all the normal stress, pain management things, sleeping well, stress levels reduced, all of these sorts of things. But when it's genuine pain and actual inflammation and stuff, like it probably won't settle. And all, it's like a perpetual cycle. Like if it's painful, you might not sleep. So it's not sleeping will increase cortisol levels. Increased cortisol
Yeah.
levels will increase inflammation. Blah 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 blah. Like you're in that perpetual cycle. Whereas with discomfort, you're not in that perpetual cycle. Is a good way for me to try and differentiate, I guess. But again, it's just so dependent on how that person presents, what their pain levels are like, and stuff like that. And ultimately, I think a lot of people, especially like in like the CrossFit and weightlifting industry, yeah, we're not maybe going to the games, and yes, we might not be going to the Olympics, but it's a massive part of our lives. Like we love the community side of it, we love the training aspect of it. And yes, if we might not be at that elite level in terms of the sport, but this is still a massive part of your life. And if you can't do that, it mentally affects you. And it's just, you don't, that's the worst part. And so
Yeah.
trying to make sure, like my job is to make sure, like one thing that I massively stand by is making sure that someone can train no matter what. And if I tell you you can't train, you know you shouldn't be training. Um,
Yeah.
is ultimately how it is. Because movement, like motion is lotion, basically. Like if you can't put your arm overhead because of a really bad impingement, let's just say, that doesn't mean you can't do any lower body stuff. That doesn't mean you can't run. That doesn't mean you can't do X, Y, and Z plus your rehab to get that better. Like, okay, it hurts when you do this, but it doesn't hurt when you do that. Fine. Let's adapt those things to make sure you're still at least able to move and train rather than not.
One thing I thought of whilst you were talking about some of the lower back issues, I'd say I've only really hurt my back one time properly, and it was in lockdown. I was just doing a stupid at-home thing. I think it was single arm overhead squats. I hyperextended my back so much. I sprained my back doing that. I was like, "Oh, this really hurts. Like, just crack on, whatever." The next day, it was that thing where I was like, okay, this really bad, but like hopefully it's just an ache and it's a really bad one. It will go away, but I couldn't sit down. It came out like bruising, like my entire lower back was completely bruised. And I
My
had to
God.
do a Zoom consult with a physio who was great. They were even looking at like the cut. They were like, can you just zoom in a bit? Like looking at the color of the bruising. Like, this is really in depth. I don't know how you're doing this, but cool. But yeah, I managed to sprain my lower back doing that in lockdown. It absolutely sucked. But what really made me laugh about it was that, well, I mean, it didn't really make me laugh at the time, but the amount of people that will turn around and lecture me because I will prawn for my life to get a heavy front squat or a heavy clean or like anything. Like I will fold myself in half and grind it out. I have never hurt myself, not remotely. But oh, must have my chest perfectly up, can't bend at all, blah, 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 sprained my back.
Yeah,
Like it's so
yeah.
like I was just ugh.
And there's such an issue with that as well. Like so many people be like, oh my God, like why are you lifting like that? There's so many factors that come from it. Everyone's body proportions are so different, number one. Like you'll look at people and you'd be like, oh my God, when you're squatting, you literally look like a deck chair. And it's just like, yeah, there might be things that you probably need to strengthen in terms of helping your form, but actually they can't help it if their femurs are really long. If your
Yeah,
femurs are really long, you are naturally going to be in a more forward position because of the levers that you have. If you've got shorter legs, you're going to be in a much more upright position. Also, your spine is made to bend and side bend and flex and rotate. If you're in those positions, like, and you're strong in those positions, fine.
yeah,
Like, you're going for a max lift. If you're in like a perfect position, like your muscles are, oh God, I could actually ramble on about this. But like, your muscles are made to stretch and shorten. And if you are constantly training them in a shortened position, you're not actually going to get stability there. So sometimes actually having a bit more of a flexed spine in a deadlift is actually going to probably be more beneficial for you and make you stronger, arguably. Like, arguably, don't get me wrong, this is very different for everyone. But
yes, indeed.
when people say, oh my God, you shouldn't lift like that, and it's just like, I was like, as you said, like, there's some people that lift like that for years and they've never had any issues. Like
Literally. I've
it's
done some
so
horrendous things with
different.
my spine, and it's fine. It's when I've too strictly tried to follow everyone else's like stuff that I've hurt myself. And
Yeah, exactly.
the other one that I specifically get is knee cave. Like, I not a few months ago, I've been broken this entire year, it must have been last year. I was doing some like heavy back squats, and I think I went up to like 100 kilos, which isn't the heaviest, but for me, I hadn't gone anything above like 70 odd kilos in a really long time. So I was kind of like, oh, I can still hit a fairly heavy number. Like, I'm super happy. Turned around, was obviously quite happy. And there was like some random PT behind me who I've seen him PT. It's the worst thing I've ever seen to start with. But he literally turned around, was looking at me in absolute disgust. And he was like, you know, you've got a knee cave. It's just like, no one's ever told me that.
And they're like, oh
Of
my God,
course, I
that's brand new information.
of
Thank
course
you.
I know I have a knee cave. Of course I know, as if no one has ever tried to disrespect anything I've ever done before by telling me I have a knee cave. And it's like, oh, you need to go and work on the hip machines downstairs. And like, I will go down and max them out just to prove. I'm like, look, I can do the whole damn rack. It's fine. I just have a knee cave. Leave it alone.
The problem is a lot of people like to do that, and it's just not a bad thing, because same again, like I literally just said about, you want to get, you want to have muscles lengthen and you want them to then shorten. If they're always short, they're not going to be able to contract properly. When you have a knee cave, it lengthens through the glutes, so you can then use the glutes to get you out of the bottom of a squat. Like, you
Yes.
use that, it's like it's like momentum, it's like that stretch reflex.
I'm
So
cropping
that,
this and I'm posting it as a clip.
like, it's really not as bad as you think. Like, yes, like for some people, you might sit there and be like, okay, maybe we could change that a bit, maybe we could improve it a bit. But that knee cave coming in out of the bottom of a squat, I literally don't see that as a problem. And
And
when people
again,
tell me that it is, I'm like, okay, why? Like what? Why? The amount of times where you can actually just use your glutes in that movement and that motion, because you've just brought them in a little bit, just to
mm,
get a bit of length through your glutes so that you can then use them. Like, yeah, that is a massive
so annoying.
topic.
The way people come at me about it, and I'm like, do you know how many years I've been doing this for? And again, I've never, ever, ever hurt myself doing
Yeah,
that.
no.
Never. So many just annoying rumors and stuff. But
Oh yeah,
hopefully you don't get as much of that because you work with athletes that are actually in sport and probably know a lot of this is rumors. But I
yeah,
know a lot of people will see this on like one Instagram site and it's Bible. And
yeah.
it's not the case.
No, 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 no.
So this might be a difficult one, but if you had somebody who was absolutely just the perfect, most balanced athlete, like they have no imbalances, no injuries, nothing, what are like your top two or three accessories that you would just say, people can't get enough of these? These are great accessories for everyone to do.
Oh God,
It doesn't
Emily.
actually have to be two or three, just some things that you're like, everyone should do this.
So, 9 times out of 10, anyone with a lower back pain, their hinge pattern is the problem. So I will always give them like a form of a single leg RDL or hinge work. And normally the way that I would always progress it is go from like a strict hinge. So being against a box. So you're literally just relying on that hip to move. And then you would progress that. So a staple for me is single leg hinge work.
Right.
Um, to be fair, next onto that is just single leg work.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't do it. Like, I actually am baffled how many people don't do it, and we all hate it for a reason, because it is awful. But
Hard.
that is a massive staple in terms of getting on top of imbalances. Um, so that's one that I would do there. Again, it's not anything specific. These aren't specific things,
Yeah.
but in your rehab, especially for weightlifters and CrossFitters, especially in your warm up, you need to side bend and rotate, because that is where injuries come from. A lot of the sport is up, down, forward, and back, and you don't do much side bending or rotating. That is where sometimes all the issues come from. So if you can incorporate that in any part of your body or your whole body or whatever, like those that is the main thing that people ignore and like or forget to do because it's not part of their training. And more often than not, when you look at people, like I look at people's like rotation or how they move or whatever, there's normally a trend. Like normally throughout their body, it's like, okay, we've looked at their ankle, okay, their rotational stability is not very good. Okay, let's look at their hip. Okay, rotational stability there is not very good. Okay, look at the thoracic spine. Okay, mobility through the thoracic spine in their rotation is not very good. Like a lot of people that I see is the things that they probably need to work on are like working in the frontal and transverse plane because we just don't do it often. And especially if you've gone from CrossFit and you're like, I really want to start running, you need to rely on those all planes of motion and single leg stuff as much as possible. Like you have to rely on them. And
Yeah.
so if you're not good in one plane of motion or as one leg's not as strong as the other, the more fatigued you get and the longer you run or the faster you run, the more that's going to come out. So I would say those are the main things. Like if you're going to have things in your warm up or have accessories, hinge pattern work, single leg work, side bend, rotate. They would be
Great.
my top ones.
All of those are kind of like you say, if you train in a sport where like with weightlifting, it's one specific movement. Like if you're only training things that are specific to that movement, you are literally not preparing yourself for something to go slightly wrong, like even
Yeah,
slightly off track. So
yeah,
yeah, it makes perfect sense that they would be all
yeah,
good for people to do. So
yeah.
anyone that doesn't do their accessories, like at least put some
Do
of those
those.
in.
Yeah.
Do some of those. Let's talk a little bit about yourself and your own athletic journey. How did you find, was weightlifting your first thing?
Yes. So I was at uni and one of my friends kind of introduced me to it. And then so I did a bit of weightlifting and then I was in my final year at uni. And I just didn't have time. So I actually ended up doing a bit of CrossFit in the last year of uni. And I loved it. Moved up to London. And then it must have been just before lockdown. And I just kind of was like, Joe, what? Like, I think I like CrossFit, but I just think I love the weightlifting side of it.
Yeah.
So I had a coach for about 8 weeks. But just before lockdown, I went on like a training camp and I met like a lot of people, like so Ollie Bog, I met him through that and all of the friends, so everyone from Neen, like I knew everyone from that. So that's how I met them. Then I kind of saw Andrew basically started with speed. I had known him for like 2 months. We were all in lockdown training, this, that, and the other. And he can power snatch till the cows come home, but he couldn't ever like squat snatch or full snatch,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. Um, and he had sent us a video in the group chat being like, look what I've just done. And he literally squat snatched and I was like, what the hell are you doing? I was just like, how have you done that? And he said that he'd started with speed, like obviously through Ollie. And I went, I need that. Like I just need that.
Oh,
And so I messaged speed and yeah, that's when my weightlifting career, I guess, started. And it just became a massive part of my personality. Like I absolutely loved it. And I was in a very fortunate position where I picked it up very quickly. So things were progressing very quickly, blah, 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 blah. Um, and I've like loved it. Like weightlifting has always been a massive thing for me. The first 2 years of me weightlifting, it was obviously still around lockdown. So most of the time it was kind of like I'd work and train, work and train. It was kind of when you then started it was getting busier at work, your social life started coming in, and like friendships, relationships, this, that, and the other, all other life stresses were kind of getting involved. The progression of my training and like my ability in weightlifting was still going up. So I'm a very competitive person, and the person that is the most hard on themselves is myself on I. And I then started getting to a point where I didn't like. I only realized this maybe 18 months after, really. Like the pressure I was putting on myself was making me realize, like, was I really enjoying it anymore?
Yeah.
Um, and that was a really hard thing for me to kind of come to terms with. And I didn't realize that that was the case. Um, this is all then starting to happen when I then started setting up my business here. Obviously, lots of work stresses, trying to set your own business up, trying to make yourself busy, make a name for yourself, as well as having a life, having a social life, trying to train around everything. And I think the one thing that I think tipped me a little bit over the edge was British when I bombed out. And I, it was possibly the worst feeling in the world. I literally was just like, I have worked so hard to get to
Yeah.
this point, and like even the warm up was just amazing. Like I literally couldn't have been a better warm up, and I literally got on the platform and just crumbled. And I spent a lot of time with a mindset coach, like trying to really work on those, like how I view competitions and stuff, because training, everything still flew and absolutely fine, but I never ever ever felt that a competition would ever reflect
Yeah.
my progress in my training. And that was really hard considering I've always been a very competitive person. Um, and it took again a while for me to come to terms with the fact, like, I love lifting, but do I enjoy competing? Um, and as we've always said, like, because of the progress I made, there was always talks about maybe doing Commonwealth and maybe Europeans and stuff like that. And so the increasing pressure that I was putting on myself, but also knowing that none of my progress in my training was ever reflecting in competitions, made me even more stressed out. And I was like, I don't know how much I can do this anymore. Like, sacrifice, there was, oh my god, like there's little things, like I can remember I had English one year, but I went to Canada for one of my best friend's wedding, and rather than just enjoying the trip, I went and trained during the trip, and the trip, like those training sessions were not very good because
Yeah.
I felt like I was forcing myself to go there because I felt like I had to. And like looking back now, I'm like, I don't regret it, but that was almost, I didn't want to live my life like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I just had to kind of come to terms with either I'd sacrifice some things in my life that I didn't want to sacrifice to make sure that I could get to the point where I could. And I just didn't, I don't know. And I was in this massive argument in my head for probably about a year, I'd say. I still trained, but like progress really wasn't there anymore. Um, I kept getting injured and niggles and everything, and it just all got a bit too much. And it then took me to manage to get a ticket for High Rocks last year, like this, probably this time last year actually. And you of all people know, everyone knows that the last thing that I would have ever wanted to do was run. Like I hated running. Like long distance running was actually a nightmare for me. I hated the idea of it. But I got excited about the idea of doing High Rocks, and I was like,
Yeah.
I haven't had that feeling in ages. And I was like, okay, maybe that's like a sign.
Yeah.
And I can then remember, so I was like, right, okay, over summer, like I'm gonna just start running. Doesn't have to be much, but from September, that will be when I properly start training. In September, we had a weightlifting comp, like an in-house, like kind of weightlifting comp here at Fort. And I literally hated it. I hated it. And I was like, I can't believe that I didn't enjoy that. Like that, it
Yeah.
was awful. And I was like, that was like my final straw. And I was like, I need to step away now before I resent the sport, because that's not what I want. I want to make sure that I still actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I still trained, but I kind of made the like decision. I was like, I'm not gonna compete for the time being. Like it doesn't, that's not necessarily a forever thing, but I feel
Mm.
like I need to step away with it because mentally I just couldn't do that to myself. Like, as much as I love the sport and the idea of potentially going to like Commonwealth Games or representing GB, like they were they were huge. They were massive parts of my mindset when when we were in COVID, because all I had to focus on was working and training. Like I didn't have to think about anything else. And since coming out of COVID and that social, like your social life, I love hanging out with friends. Like I've got a nice and a lovely social network. I've got friends who live all around the country. So weekends are either spent them coming to me and me going to them. Like everyone knows that I'm a very busy person. So trying to fit all of that in was so difficult. And I didn't know how much I really actually wanted it. And was I doing it for me or was I doing it for other people?
That's
Because
such a
other
big
people
question.
expected that of me. And I had to do that and I didn't want to let people down. Um, God, I'm actually going to cry.
No, I
And
know. I'm getting a little bit like emotional too, thinking about because I really, really
yeah,
appreciate you kind of sharing all of this because it's something that I mean, I myself am in a very similar situation at the moment where I'm having to ask a lot of very, very difficult questions about this kind of thing. But also, I know of several friends that are in these situations where every time we talk about what they've got coming up or how training's going or what they actually want in the future, it's got to a point where you can just see it in them that they're 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 aware of how they feel and how actually they're feeling pretty terrible about everything and how they're not enjoying it and they're not
yeah,
doing it themselves and all of this. But it's actually so difficult to put yourself first and be like, well, and it shouldn't be. Like it
no,
feels silly when I talk to somebody like you because obviously we've competed together, like we've done stuff together, we've trained together. When
yeah,
you turned around and were like, I'm really happy doing like high rocks and some more CrossFit and stuff like that. I'm really enjoying it. No part of me was like, oh, like,
yeah,
but
no,
I like
it's
no part of me
ridiculous.
feels that way. Yet when I feel a bit like I don't know what I like if I need kind of a break or this or that, I feel like my entire social life is just gonna leave me and there's
Yeah,
gonna be like of course like it's really difficult when it's you. It's really,
yeah,
really hard. And athlete identity is such a complex thing, like
yeah.
because it's such a big part of your life that it's almost like, well, who am I without that then? Like,
That you just saying that sentence makes me want to cry. That
sorry.
is no, because that is exactly what happened. And
Yeah,
I really felt like everyone knew me for being a weightlifter, everyone knew me for being really strong and stuff like that. But I was like, I just don't know if I want to do it anymore. And he's going to be so angry with me telling you this, not even angry, just whatever. But like the one person that I owed all of my lifting, like career progress, everything to was speed. And making this decision was more hard, like having to tell him about it than anyone else, because I didn't want to let him down. And he was the only person that, um, he was the only person that believed in me more than like anyone else. Like I didn't believe in myself. He believed in me more than I did. And he still does. He still bloody does. Um, and having to make that decision because that was how I felt, like there was no part of training or competing or anything that I just enjoyed anymore. Um, was really hard to like come to terms with because I knew I had the potential. Like it doesn't like I knew that, but I didn't want the lifestyle of having to put that pressure on myself
yeah,
without sacrificing so many other things that I love. Um, I just couldn't. I wasn't there. Like I wasn't there, and but taking that step back has been the best thing. Like I've loved my running. I've done what, two high roxes, I've done two half marathons, and I've loved it. And I still want to continue that. But now by taking the break away from that, like the last 3 weeks I've been doing CrossFit and weightlifting again.
Yeah.
and I've loved it. Like I snatched like 70 and 72 last week, and I'm like,
Guys, for
yes, I was
you
like,
look
yes,
genuinely happy to like be doing it, and yeah,
yeah. And like I did the next fort competition here, like loved it. Had so much fun because
yeah,
I've just taken that pressure away from it all. And that's the problem, is the pressure that you put on yourselves. And the one bit of advice I can give to anyone is, this sounds savage, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, you're only putting that pressure on yourself. No one else is putting that pressure on you. If you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? Like,
yeah,
at the end of the day. And as hard as it was to make those decisions, I'm glad I made those decisions, because then they now have made me feel better in the decision making that I've done. I feel better in myself. I feel like, oh, do you know what? Today I'm just going to go for a run. Today I'm going to just do some bodybuilding. Today I'm just going to do some CrossFit. I'll go and train with, like, I've now started training with like some of my patients at different gyms, and I'll just be like, what are you doing today? And I'll just drop in and do that, because over the next couple of months I want to just build up my gymnastic skills again, get stronger again. Because I've really, apart from doing a bit of running and some high rocks, like, I've not really trained much for the like, first 6 months of the year, because my priority has been work and building my business. That is okay. Like,
yeah,
that's okay. And I'm happy with that and I'm fine with that. But I know that the next 2 months is now like, I'm at where I want to be, and I've got a bit more time on my hands. Okay, I now can focus on my training and doing social things and stuff like that. Like, your priorities change. Like, you never have, a priority is never the same
yeah,
throughout the year. Like, now over the next few months, I know I've got more time, so my priority will be training and just getting myself to where I want to be. Um, but the most important thing that I've learned is, like, if you're not enjoying it, then what's the point?
yeah,
And as hard as that was to make the decision, I'd much rather be in a position where I can enjoy it rather than being the best at it.
yeah,
And that's, again, hard to come to terms with. But, like, I mean, in my head, I've sat, like, now I've got lifting again. I'm like, okay, I'd love to be able to get back to doing 80, 100, like, flipping love to. Like, and if I can get back to that, that's great. Like, there's no more than that. If I fancy doing a weightlifting competition again, maybe I'll do it. If it doesn't go very well, doesn't matter. Like, that is the sort of mindset that I want to do, because I just want to keep myself fit and healthy and feel good in myself and with what I'm doing, rather than feeling like I have to be the best at something. I have to compete. I have to do X, Y, and Z. Like, I've done a couple of CrossFit competitions as well. Loved it, because there's no pressure. You're with your team, and it's a fun day out sort of thing. So yeah, that's the things that have just kind of like changed
yeah.
mentally. And it's all been a bit of a roller coaster over the last few years. And, like, again, as you said, like, athlete identity is really hard.
So hard.
Um, but, and especially when you think that you think in your head that everyone has this expectation of you. So, like, I'd go to a competition and everyone there would expect, in my head, everyone there would expect me to do really well. And I then felt like I had to always live up to that. And I hated it. Like, I hated that pressure that no one put on me, but I put on myself. And
Yeah.
I couldn't do that anymore.
I, I do. I completely, honestly, I really get it. And I think the expectation, like, firstly, I think people who are truly in it for you, they won't necessarily have an expectation. They'll just have the belief in you. So I know that when you walk out on a stage, you can do a certain number. That doesn't mean I expect it of you if you
Yeah.
do something entirely different, because you might have wanted to go 6 for 6 that day and just guarantee because you wanted to make that an achievement, or you just wanted a practice run because you haven't competed in a while and you want to do a cut. Like, there's so many different reasons why
Yeah.
somebody might go out and not do what you know that they could do at 100%.
Yeah.
But it's a belief, it's not an expectation. People that expect that of you kind of aren't in
Yeah.
that for you, like they're not truly
Yeah.
supporting you. And I think with the belief thing, like, that is something that I found really difficult as well, because I don't know what I've put people through, honestly, at times for the last few years with all the like I've had literally my own coach, Chris, has had to like stage interventions almost because my mental health is so bad that it's
Yeah.
like this isn't a normal stage of this isn't good. This is like a real concern and you might need
This
to
is a
step back.
concern. Yeah.
For a coach to say that, like that's some fucking integrity for a start because
Yeah.
like but I mean I've really put people through the ringer with it, but they've believed in me and I find it really difficult to have not fulfilled what they believe I can do. But they like again, if they have true intentions and they're in it for you, they don't want that for themselves. They want that for you. And if
Yeah.
that's not good for you, they no longer want that for you. They still
Yeah.
believe you can do it, but
Yeah.
that's not what they want because they ultimately care about you and want you to be happy.
Yeah.
So
And that's where I've known as soon as I've stepped away from it, I've been like, oh, these people actually like just believe in me and they want me to be happy rather than it being,
yeah,
oh, well, like you've put it perfectly. It's expectation versus belief, like very, very
yeah,
different things. And the people who that care about you and who are your friends are the ones that believe in you. The ones that are not are the ones that expect things from you. And that's just, it's totally different. And I think that
yeah,
is a very good way of putting it. And so if you've got people around you who expect things from of you, when you know that you're on the fence about something or you're struggling with it or whatever, then that's not the people that
no.
you should be surrounding yourself
And I
around.
think with coaches or teammates in particular, if you can take a step back and think of it like this and think, okay, is it legitimately an expectation? Then they're probably people that are in it for, like, you get coaches that it's just their career and they probably don't care that much about their athletes and
Yeah.
they want you to do well because it makes them look good. And it is a career at the end of the day. A coach is somebody's job and you will get people like that. That's
Yeah.
not for me. Like, there's a lot of
No.
people that doesn't suit, but you probably get good coaches that are like that. If you're struggling with this sort of thing, like they're not in it for you emotionally, so maybe their
No.
opinion shouldn't actually matter in that regard.
Yeah.
Like
I
it's your life.
completely agree.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
And Chris is a really good role model for that, in fairness, because
Yeah.
actually he's done however met like he's a British at the weekend. He
Yeah.
has been doing other stuff. Like he's not in it to win that or anything like that. He's
He's
been doing
going
his
to
other
enjoy it.
stuff. He
Yeah.
got an invite. He was like, yeah, fuck it, let's let's
Yeah.
do it.
Pretty
And then he'll
much.
go off and do something weird that's completely unrelated next week. And he's a great role model for that because nobody's ever going to turn around and be like, oh, Chris didn't like train 100% for the British. He's an absolute ninja of sorts. Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to question his ability for not having done
Mental.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mental. It is mental.
So,
But no, you put
yeah.
that perfectly there, actually. Very, very well.
I've really loved like the stuff that you've shared. I'm really grateful that you've kind of gone into the personal side of that because I do think there's a lot of
I
people
did
out there
not
at this
expect to
moment that
cry.
need to hear it. I
Yeah.
wasn't ruling it out, but I'm surprised that I've held together. Maybe I'm becoming like a professional. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I'll
maybe.
I'll FaceTime in an hour sobbing. But yeah,
But yeah,
no,
no,
thank
thank you
you
so
so
much.
much.
And it's one of those where I think maybe I've not spoken about it as much and not realised how much it's probably influenced me. But I hope people can listen to it and take away, like, because some people might be feeling this and then not actually thinking that that's how they feel or whatever.
Yeah,
And but yeah, I hope it's been useful for some people.
I think
Um,
it will be. To
so
also see that someone has made that difficult decision and it was the correct decision. Like
yeah,
you back it. So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Well,
Thank you so much for having me.
thank you so much. I will obviously put all your Instagram and things like that in the caption, so everyone should go
Yeah,
follow Tash. And
and
yeah,
do my work one as well, Osgood Movement.
of course I will. I will put everything. They will be finding you everywhere.
Amazing.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much, my love.
All
All right,
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.